Okay, now to talk about the side missions in Majora's Mask, this is kind of a handful. A absolute loaded question, but the thing is this. There are 10 side missions that I would actually say are worth their time other than the heart piece. Now, the obvious one that's most famous for this game is the Anju and Cafe quest. Now, the quest in a nutshell is pretty much that the Skull Kids turn the adult into a boy and you have to reunite them through the 3-day cycle. Everyone really knows the case of it, but seeing them hug in the end feels pretty wholesome after going through what you had to go through just to get them together after getting all these different masks and the masks you get to do it. But also, another good side quest is the ones you do near the Romani Ranch, where is actually where you find Epona. Now, if you find a way of getting past over here on the first day, mainly you have to do the second dungeon first, so you actually have the Goron barrel to break through that giant rock in the way. But yeah, otherwise, technically, the first thing you need to do is defend the barn from the ghosts, so that way they don't steal the little girl and they don't steal any of the cows. After the whole thing is over, she rewards you with a milk bottle, which obviously you could use to carry anything else other than the milk. But otherwise, with her sister, technically there's a side quest where you actually need to take the cart back to Clocktown to deliver these milk bottles. And there are 2 thieves chasing you. And let's just be honest and say this, it's kind of obvious who the 2 thieves are. It's most likely just those 2 guys on the sidelines of this area that you have to race to get the Garua mask to get up to the 4th dungeon of the place. But again, beating them is pretty easy. You have unlimited arrows, and doing this will actually get you the one of the side masks, which is known as the cow mask, which you need to get inside the milk bar, of course, letting them know that you're a member because you can't exactly walk in. But if you do this a second time after getting the mask, you're going to be greeted with very perverted imagery. I mean, seriously, his face is literally pressed right against it. But otherwise, another side quest that I would argue is worth your time is getting the Gilded Sword. Now, doing this involves another 3-day cycle mission. The first thing you need to do, of course, is one, of course, you need the Goron mask. Also, what you need to do is greet the guy, and if you give him 100 rupees, technically, he will give you a stronger sword. And in the meantime, I would use that power keg, of course, to get over to the next area where the lake is, and also where you found the frozen Goron father. Pretty much over in that location, there is a giant rock in the way you have to blow out of the way because that's the Goron racetrack. Over here, there is a certain race you have to do, and if you win this race, which is essentially you have to be first place, if you win the race, you will actually be able to get the golden dust, which is what you need to get the gilded sword. Now, after you get the golden dust, you come back on the second day, you get the razor blade sword. Now, if you talk to him again, he'll ask for gold dust. You give it to him, and then you have to wait another day until the 3rd day, and you will be given the strongest sword, because as he's mentioned that usually when you have that weapon, your damage will increase by triple, implying you're 3 times as strong as you used to be. And after this, the next quest I would recommend doing is the Stray Fairy quest. These fairy fountains I would definitely say are worth it. I mean, obviously the first one you're going to get to because it's essential of getting through the story. But the other 4 are technically optional. To get to them, you need 15 stray fairies. That mask will help you a lot trying to find them. Now, the first fairy fountain usually will give you an upgrade that has to do with more magic. As I recall, I think this one is the Great Fairy of Wisdom. Usually each one will give you a special ability. I would argue that all of these are important, implying if you weren't trying to get the fairies on your first run through the temple, the second time I would just go back in there, look at a video, and find all the fairies. They're not that hard to find, actually, because one, it's only 15 of them in a not so big temple. I mean, I'd argue that the temples aren't very big in this game. The only one that I would say is a pain is probably the last one, because the reward you get for this one isn't a simple magic upgrade, but you get the Great Fairy Sword, which is actually the strongest sword in the game. Another side quest I would do is the Outside Spider House Mystery. Doing this, you have to destroy a lot of golden Scotulas, and your reward for all of doing this, after doing so many puzzles, kill many golden Scotula spiders, your reward will be actually a heart piece. Now again, like I mentioned, I'd say that the heart piece little side quests are worth doing because, I mean, sure, they may be kind of a pain to go through, but it would stretch out your playtime because, again, there's only 4 dungeons in the game, which makes it kind of short, but all these extra little mini dungeons in the game will make the game a little bit more satisfying. The next quest I would recommend doing as well that is optional technically is giving the stone hidden soldier a potion, so that way you can have the stone mask to be invisible. You can beat that part without it, but you don't have to do it. I just recommend you should do it. The next side quest is the 3 days of games. The first one involves technically throwing bomb chews at targets, which is the hardest one. Pretty much gets to easy to hard. The second day you're throwing bombs into these nests until they're all gone. And the third day you're shooting arrows. And funny enough, you can actually shoot the 2 people dancing, but otherwise after you do that you'll get a heart piece. The next side quest I'd recommend doing is somewhere near the creepy house at the swamps area. Pretty much the same area where you jump in to get to the dungeon. If you noticed how there's a little island where there's a spider web covering a door, there's another golden scroll area you can go to. Except this won't reward you for a heart piece for getting all of them. You will actually get this mask, which is known as pretty much a mask you can use to see through secrets, and you can also use it in one race that involves dogs later on. The Mask of Truth, pretty much. It's something you see in the main cover of the 3DS version. But otherwise, another side quest I would say is also important as well would be that one quest where you talk to the music guy and he gives you the Bremen mask, and you need the Bremen mask to play this specific song to these 10 different chicks, and when they become chicken, you get the bunny hood, which is probably the most useful mask or hood in the entire game, because one, you're running twice as fast, and I've noticed in some cases it feels like I'm moving even faster than I would on Epona. I mean, that was my luck with the ghost mission, but otherwise, yeah, I'd argue this mission is very important, and I'd argue getting the bunny hood would be important. Now, this is one I recommend not doing at all costs, because these little 4 quests known as Child's Play involve going through little mini versions of the dungeon. Reason why it's not worth it is because you go through so much effort to get all of this. You have to get literally all 23 masks, and the last one is the 24th, the Fierce D mask. This Goron thing is the bane of my existence, and I'd say this is the worst side quest little mini game out of anything in the game. That was just the worst. Now, the other 3 other areas are pretty easy for the most part, but still, I'd argue that getting the Fierce DD mask is 100% reward that I'd argue is definitely most absolutely not worth it because of all of the ridiculous amount of mini games, going through tedious daily life cycles. You are frequently rewinding time over and over and over again. No joke, there is 68 side quests in this game. 68 side quests. 68 side quests.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, after knowing that, you can know that almost everything you're doing in this game is honestly just the sake for playtime or just doing something else in Termina. The main story of the game is just so dang short, and when you're done with it, you feel like you want to do more. Well, I feel like they went a little too far with it, because I don't think 75% of the game should be based on side quests. I mean, the bare minimum, in my opinion, should be the game itself should be at least 60% of the gameplay. Like, at least the main story or campaign should be 60% of the experience, or maybe 70%, and only 40 or 30% should be optional stuff, and not most of it. I just feel like they went a little too far with this. But otherwise, that's just what I think. And in the future, a couple of new videos will be coming, basically on versus Ocarina versus Majora. But before I make this video, there's one little extra video I want to upload first, just to let you know, so stay tuned for that.